Jarquez Carter commits to Ohio State. Let's talk about it. LJ has done it again. Larry Johnson is hot on the trail right now with getting defensive linemen recruits committed to Ohio State. Many guys who have been committed here this summer. We'll talk about that in a little bit later on. But as Jarquez Carter commits to Ohio State, he has committed over the likes of Penn State, Miami, UCF. Florida was in there a little bit too, but he didn't take a visit to Florida this summer, so it's always hard to say you commit over somebody when you don't actually take a visit there. But Jarquez Carter, guys, this is a good one. All right, 2025 class, Newberry, Florida, going down outside the state of Ohio, going down to the south, getting one of their defensive linemen. Now, this isn't like one of those crazy down south guys, but still going down to the south and getting defensive linemen, getting the big boys is always harder down in the south. And so when you can do that, when you can go down there and get them, you're definitely happy about it. 6'2", 284, 285. I've seen some people say, so they're probably just rounding up. But in 2023, he finished his junior season with 67 tackles as an interior defensive lineman. 67 tackles, 37 tackle for losses. That helps certainly when over half of your tackles are tackles for losses. 15 QB hits, 9 sacks per max preps, and helped Newberry make the regional finals of the Florida's 1R playoffs. Excellent work there. 2022, his sophomore season, he totaled 78 tackles, even more that time. That's spectacular. 23 tackles for loss, 10 sacks, 8 QB hits, 2 pass breakups, getting his arm up and knocking it down, 1 forced fumble. He also plays basketball, so again, we are continuing to see this trend of Ohio State trying to recruit players who don't just play football but also have an athletic background outside of the football field, somewhere track and field, basketball, something like that. Kind of like to see wrestling over basketball for some of your guys, but I don't think that's going to be too much concern here. I watched a little bit of Jarquez Carter's film before we got on here, and I think we're going to like what we see. The 24/7 composite has him nationally as number 394, so this isn't some high 4-star that is going to get the nation's attention. Obviously, we as Ohio State fans, we're going to be very excited for Jarquez Carter, but this isn't like we got to commit from over UCF, Penn State, guys like that. This wasn't one we were battling with Oregon or something, but still fantastic commit, and love to have Jarquez Carter a part of the class. The agency that is high. The recruiting department that is highest on him is Rivals. They are number 229 nationally, the 15th defensive lineman and number 47 player in the state of Florida. I think I forgot to say the composite. Defensive lineman ranking in the composite is 42, number 55 player in the composite in the state of Florida. The group that is the lowest on Jarquez Carter is on 3. On 3 does not have him ranked nationally. They have him the number 46 defensive lineman and the number 72. So not even top 50, number 72, not even fringe top 50 in the state of Florida. Look, this is really, really cool. Jarquez Carter joins a defensive line class that had 5 defensive line commits before this happened. Trajan Odom, Maxwell Roy, London Merritt, Zahir Mathis, and Zion Ziggy Grady were all in this class. That makes now 6 defensive line / edge guys now in this class, and you have a class that is predominantly defensive players. 14 defensive commits now. 6 of those are on the defensive line or an edge prospect, and it's exciting to see, right? I mean, after Larry Johnson had some struggles last year, he signed Eric Mensah, the Dominic Kirks from Ohio, and Edric Houston. Edric Houston looked a little dicey there for a little bit, but he was still able to get him to come to Ohio State, and now he's coming back with a super big class. I mean, this is what you wanted to see from Larry Johnson. He's taking guys that are sure things. I think Trajan Odom, Jarquez Carter, I think these are sure guys that are going to come in and make an impact for Ohio State. I don't know if they're going to be multi-year starters, but they're definitely going to make an impact. You've brought in a guy who has really good potential if he can put it all together and get through the injury, and Maxwell Roy, and you're bringing in London Merritt, who, yes, he is the defensive lineman, but He can also go to the edge. Possibly he has some of that skill set, and his body could possibly scoot him out to the edge. So even though we only have 2 edge and we have 4 defensive linemen, you're looking at a situation where one of these defensive linemen has the potential, I'm not saying it's going to happen, but has the potential to move out to the edge and be a player out there in London Merritt. Now, the big question with this commitment: will Ohio State still take Malik Autry or Jakeem Stewart if, in fact, they do want to commit to Ohio State? The answer is unequivocally yes. If either of those players wants to commit to Ohio State, I don't care who is committed to your program. You're taking those commitments. Okay, this is exactly what you want to be doing when you are a line recruiter, whether it's defensive line or offensive line. You want to bring in as many guys as possible, get them to commit. And if you bring in a big fish, i.e. Malik Autry, Jakeem Stewart, then the other guys, they just move on. They go somewhere else. And you hate to see that, right? You don't want to see guys flip. You don't want to push guys out. But this is kind of what we've been talking about with the formation of Ohio State lately, is that they're getting a little bit harder on these kids, where they're going to say, hey, if another kid comes in that we feel like makes our team better and he wants to commit, we're going to take the commit. We're not going to say, oh, well, we can't take this commit because you were loyal and you committed first. No, if you think Malik Autry is going to make your team better and he's better than all the other defensive linemen you have committed, you take Malik Autry in this situation. This isn't dibs. You're not going to have guys come here first. Same thing with Jakeem Stewart in his situation with trying to reclassify. I mean, if either of these guys want to come in and they want to be a part of the class, they're going to make sure they have room for them. And if all the other guys want to stay, guess what? You're going to have a defensive line class of, 8 players if that happens. Now, is it likely that Malik Autry flips? Hard to say. I think that the stuff we're seeing from Malik Autry online is very encouraging, right? He is wearing Ohio State gear. He's posting things with Ohio State. But as we also know, the name of Ohio State gets clicks. The name of Ohio State gets people to react. Not just Ohio State fans. Yes, it is the biggest fan base in all of college football, but it also gets other fan bases concerned. It gets them looking into it. Oh, is something going on here? Could he be flipping? Could he be thinking about going to Ohio State? And then you're having to talk. You're having to go read the media, things like that. And then you're all over the kid's socials trying to figure out if there's anything else he did. Now, I'm not accusing Malik Autry of not being genuine when he's posting Ohio State stuff. I'm just giving you the idea that just because he's posting all this Ohio State stuff doesn't necessarily mean he's going to flip tomorrow. No matter what happens with Malik Autry, if Malik Autry flips tomorrow, no matter what happens, this is a recruitment that will go until signing day. You could lose him on signing day, even if he flips and commits tomorrow. He could flip right back on signing day and go on over to Auburn. So for me, I'm not really concerned about what happens with Malik Autry. If he decommits, if he flips, whatever happens, I'm more concerned about what happens on signing day. It's good that we continue to hear about him, right? It's good that he continues to mention Ohio State. That gives me the idea, okay, Ohio State is still in this. I haven't seen anything that makes me believe that Ohio State has the edge in this situation where, yes, he's leaning so much to Ohio State that he's going to go there, but I definitely feel better about it than some other flip candidates that I know Ohio State's going after, i.e. Justin Hill and Dorian Brew. Those guys, I mean, they just committed recently, so obviously they're not going to be doing that much, but those guys, there doesn't seem to be any connection to Ohio State on socials or anything like that, so you definitely like to see that. On the other hand, Jakeem Stewart. Jakeem Stewart will reclassify. I mean, this is almost a foregone conclusion. I don't know the exact details about what he's waiting on and what he has to do in those situations, but I mean, the plan for Jakeem Stewart is to reclassify. If he does not reclassify, something has gone wrong, and it's out of his control, because everything we hear is that Jakeem Stewart is going to reclassify, and the type of relationship that Larry Johnson is building with Jakeem Stewart is not one that you normally are focusing this much on a 2026 class kid, not because he's not important or something like that, but because Larry Johnson is recognizing this kid very possibly, very likely is going to reclassify, and you can add him to this class, and he would be a huge piece to add to this class. Would Jakeem Stewart make somebody decommit? Would he make somebody else move on? Possibly. But then again, you're looking at a kid who still needs to fill into his body a little bit and still needs to work a little bit more with pads. He has fantastic athleticism, has a fantastic body, but he still needs to fill in a little bit. And so it's not like he's going to come in and be a day one starter. But you could definitely still see somebody say, you know what, I'm going to move on and go over here to this school. Obviously, we don't want that to happen, but it's certainly a possibility. And like I said, with defensive and offensive linemen, you just want to try to stack up as many guys as possible. If somebody moves on, they move on. The difficult part on the offensive side, especially in the next cycle, is a lot of those guys are in state. And you can't really do that to in-state guys nearly as much as you can to national guys because you're going to burn a bridge, right? You're going to burn the bridge with the coach. You're going to burn the bridge with the parents. If somebody else has a kid coming up and they might be thinking about your school, you know, Jeremiah Smith has a brother coming up, somebody that Ohio State might be interested in. Marvin Harrison Jr. has a brother coming up, somebody that Ohio State might be interested in. And so those guys weren't necessarily treated like Ohio players, but they were treated like that in some ways. So that way they made sure they weren't hindering the relationship with the family right there. All right. Anyway, we've gotten far off into a tangent. Let's go ahead and get it back to Jarquez Carter. Jarquez Carter is a big piece for this class. He is somebody that Larry Johnson loves to work with. This is a guy that his hands are not the best. He does have short arms, but he does make up with it with his hands. And when you get into working with Larry Johnson's going to get your hands right. And so this is a perfect fit in my mind for what Jarquez Carter's strengths are right now and what he will get better at as he continues to develop under Larry Johnson. So let's look at some of the film here. I'm going to move this over here, come here, and boom. All right. Take a look. All right. So fast, kind of miss it. All right. Coming off the edge there a little bit. And yeah, I mean, you're going to see the first step. That is what's going to shock you in this entire thing. And I remember listening to Bucknuts, I think it was, when Mark Porter was talking about this kid will overrun quarterback and the running back sometimes. And I mean, you're seeing it already. You're seeing him. He has such a high motor, and he's able to use that first step in such a way that he's able to get right by the defense or the offensive line. I mean, it's just an outstanding first step. Just watch that foot. Watch that front foot. He doesn't mess with it. It's that foot coming from the back, stepping up right away. Some people would say, oh, well, the line just broke down. No, he was just that fast. I mean, that is how quickly he is getting through this line. Now, it certainly helps for him to use some of his strength with that first step. When you have a first step that fast, you're able to come at guys and you're able to hit them in such a way that they're unexpected, they're not expecting it, they're not ready for it, and you can really just, really knock those guys back. Now, the knock on Jarquez Carter, one of the reasons why he is not as highly rated of a player, of course, he is playing in Florida, but the knock on him is that his competition he's been facing is not FBS level competition. This is not thought to be competition that will be in the FBS. And so the concern there is, yeah, he has a great first step, but he also has a great first step against, guys that aren't going to be playing Division I college football, or I guess FBS college football. Other teams are still Division I. Now, I think you can still see the physical tools. I think you can still see the first step. The level of competition doesn't affect the first step. It might affect the way he looks, but I would think if you're scouting and you're doing this correctly, you would still be able to see that. And you would still be able to see hand placement. You would still be able to see the drive, the motor for the legs to keep pumping. I'm waiting to see him stand a guy up and push. Yep. I mean, just threw the guy down. Again, not the longest arms in the world. Needs to work on his hands a little bit. Oh, he's nasty. That is nasty. I mean, look at that, guys. That is. It's just outstanding. Now, like I said, this isn't a perfect prospect, but the first step, the speed, it does remind me of Michael Hall. I think anybody who's watching this and if they hear that name, you instantly are seeing what I'm seeing, where Michael Hall was able to use that speed from the interior and almost rush like an edge player. And that's what we're seeing from Jarquez Carter here. I mean, he hits those guys, pushes them back, gets right around them. It's a combination of power and speed. And it's kind of what people knock JT for, right? Is he's all power. He doesn't knock and then try to speed around the guy. He just knocks the guy back and then continues to try and push. And sometimes it works out. I mean, he's very strong. Sometimes it works out, but sometimes it doesn't. And he's stood up. But when you are able, man, it's so good. When you are able to get by defenders and push defenders back on the interior of the defensive line like that, it makes such a big difference at everything the offense is trying to do. If you can knock a guy back and get around him on the wrong side of the line, they can keep running away from you. Now you might be so disruptive that you can still affect that from time to time, but there are ways to scheme through that and around that. With Ohio State having the linebackers with the athleticism that they have, think of Riley Pettijohn, think of TJ Alford coming in with this class, you're going to have guys trying to divert away from the interior of the defensive line. And so not only am I excited about Jarquez Carter, look at him push. Look at him drive the legs. It's excellent. But when you have somebody who's able to disrupt the interior of the defensive or the offensive line like that and just get right into the backfield, use that first step, the ability to push. He's coming off the edge here too. It's just a perfect marriage with a linebacker core like TJ Alford, like Riley Pettijohn, using their speed, using their athleticism. And I'm not knocking Eli Lee here. I think Eli Lee is a good player. I really like what he offers on his film. I think he's a smart player. I think that he has an ability to read and react. I'm just saying he's not the athletic freak like Riley Pettijohn is. He's not known for his athleticism like, some guys like TJ Alford might be. So, all right, this film is 7 minutes. We don't need to watch the whole thing, but I hope that gives you guys a good idea of Jarquez Carter. I hope it gives you an idea not just of who he could be, but also how he fits in this class. I'm really excited about Jarquez Carter. I hope you are as well. If he does turn into a Michael Hall type, I mean, how awesome would that be? This is a pass rush specialist you can get in there, but he's also somebody that you could play every down with. Maybe you choose the versatility of what you want to do with him, but he is a pass rusher, obviously, but he also has the ability to disrupt the middle with the run game and do those kind of things. So thank you so much, everybody, for watching. We do appreciate it. Please do like and subscribe. It's wonderful to have you watching these videos, and I hope you enjoy them, and I hope to make another one here soon. We'll see. Thanks, everybody. Have a good one.